So here we are, longing to read some good books, and when we want to read good books and also good mystery books, we call Dennis Broe. Dennis, welcome again. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine. I'm back here in Paris, about to go to Croatia, which I think is perhaps Harry Palmer territory. Also, there's probably a whole noir and
Yes.
crime aspect of Croatia. I've been reading a book called Red Water, Rouge d'eau, and in French, and well, it's about how Croatia was essentially pillaged by Irish capitalists to build it up and to
Oh,
make it the spot that it is right now. So if Harry Palmer were alive today, which he wouldn't be, since the book takes place in 1948, I think he might be investigating.
yeah, completely. But now Harry Palmer isn't saying a farewell to arms. That's what we were used to do, but a hello to arms. Why this title?
Well, of course, it's from Hemingway,
Yeah.
and Hemingway, when he wrote it about the end, of World War One, and the idea that the U.S. had said they were going to make the world safe for democracy, and it was called the War to
Yes.
End All Wars. Well, Harry is in L.A. in 1948. And it's a time of peace. There's no war going on. In fact, Europe is utterly devastated. The Soviet Union and all the countries of Europe are trying to rebuild. And yet, Harry, well, first of all, he's visited by an African American worker who works at an aerospace plant, who's kind of lost part of his memory, and who claims that what happened was he was working in this plant, and some noxious fumes got to him, and they just fired him. So he asked Harry to get his retirement back for him, because they just fired him with no compensation. He wants him to get his, as he says, compensation back.
Yeah.
So that's how Harry starts, and how he starts to get involved in the aircraft, airline, and also weapons industry in 1948. So that's one case that he's working on. The other case, he gets hired again also, and he gets hired from, I don't know if you remember, from the first book, Left of Eden.
Yeah.
Harry ended up having an affair with this starlet, and
Yes.
They ended up sleeping together, and she appears. He's in a nightclub. He's in a black nightclub on Central Avenue where they play rhythm and blues in 1948. This is a music that just is beginning. And Harry sees her, and she says, I recommended you to someone. And he says, oh, and almost before he can say anything, she's gone. And she tells him, before she goes, she tells him who to call. And so he goes, and it turns out it's the Henry Wallace presidential campaign, which was a campaign in 1948, and they've got a leak. Someone is turning over all of their secrets, and they want Harry to plug the leak. And so that's his second case, so he's working on both of those. And we don't know if perhaps they might be connected in some way, but the more he investigates, the more it seems like possibly they are, or they might be, in a way that we haven't seen before.
There is an interesting thing, and I guess a metaphor, a comparison we all can understand. Then when you say that LA is like an Oreo cookie. Why an Oreo cookie? Because film industry and the arms industry, the weapons industry, are
Yes.
closely related, aren't they?
Yes, and that's, thanks for bringing that up. The Oreo cookie is that, it has the cream inside, the gushy stuff that everyone wants to get to. That's the Hollywood film industry. and it's inside Hollywood. But on the outside, ringing the cream, the chocolate outer layer, is the arms industry.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is the moment when LA is really starting to adopt the aerospace and arms industry. So
yes.
the two of them work kind of seamlessly, as Harry sort of finds out, the movie industry and the arms industry. And, of course, we know that one of the primary things that Hollywood makes movies about is weapons.
Yes.
So those are all the action films, that's what it's doing. So you can kind of see that geography of LA on the screen in Hollywood, so it hasn't changed too much since Harry's time. And he's driving at one point and he realizes, he's in Culver City and he's going out to this plant. And in Culver City, it turns out, is both the MGM studio, which was, the epitome of the studio system, and Howard Hughes Aeronautics, which was designing, radar and weapons. So there they were, right next to each other, the two of the major purveyors and two of the major industries of Hollywood, the aerospace and weapons industry and the movie industry.
Mm-hmm. Completely. Dennis, we were talking like 2 weeks and a half, almost 3 weeks, about your book, Diary of a Digital Plague Year. It's a book, non-fiction, it's a book like a research book. And now we're talking about Hello to Arms. How do you write with the two arms, with the left and the right at the same time? How do you do it to release at the same time these different kind of books?
Okay, the answer is I don't do it at the same time. I do one and then the other. So, so Hello to Arms I finished first. Although actually while I was doing it, I was writing the television columns that are a part of a Diary of a Digital Plague Year. But Hello to Arms I really did first. And I also spent a lot of time in LA researching for the book.
Yes.
And that was very interesting. And I'm going back there, actually, in November, because the third book is called The Precinct with the Golden Arm.
Oh.
And I don't know if you know or not, but that is I believe it's an Otto Preminger film with Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra.
Yes, I was going to tell you, Frank Sinatra should be around.
Yes, The Man with the Golden Arm is about a guy who has a heroin addiction.
Yes.
So this is about the LAPD in a precinct that has a heroin addiction.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And so it's about the LAPD. And we haven't had a really totally honest look at the LAPD. They really kind of slide pretty easily. The best we have is LA Confidential. That's sort of an honest look. But this is going to go a bit further in terms of LAPD drugs, but also in terms of where drugs come from. And where they come from in terms of this book that Harry discovers is not from the street. They come from the suites and from the pharmaceutical companies. And it also encompasses...
That's very related with what we're seeing actually, because there are some agreements, some, I guess, confidential agreements between some pharmaceuticals, and some people are even some different things that happen, that they are trying to silence what happened with the opioid crisis in
Yes, opioids, and also fentanyl now, which has come on top of it, which is worse, drug than the opioids. And and Purdue Pharmacy, the Purdue Company, and the Sacklers, no one's gone to jail for any of these deaths.
Yes,
the fentanyl. There is someone who is really pushing fentanyl, and I think that person actually has gone to jail. There's a very good documentary, a 2-part documentary by Alex Gibney on this, which was on HBO, called Crime of the Century, about this.
Yeah.
But anyway, to get back to the current book.
Yes, I was going to ask you because as you told us, there is a lot of, like in all your fiction books, a lot of research that's related with what you actually do, and in this one, I guess there is a lot of first of all, there's the what I think you are always very concerned with, that are the conditions of the labor, because in LA, like unions were almost like prohibited, and in your book you show a lot that the work conditions weren't the best of the world, aren't they?
Yes, in the factory where Horace, that's the African American man, works.
Yeah.
They're pretty bad, and a lot of people are sort of damaged by them.
Sure.
That's one thing, and there's a union organizer that Harry meets. Who's trying
Yes.
to, because this is very popular. The plant that he goes to, he gets a job there for a day to find out what he can. And the plant where he's working, they have, what we call a sweetheart union,
Yeah.
which is a union that just goes along with everything the owner says, So there's a union organizer who's trying to get a better union, a real union, in, and they sort of battle him, and Harry listens to him, because he's trying to find out whatever he can to help Horace, and so that's a part of it. There's unions. Another part of the book is this idea of how really racist LA in the 40s was.
Yes.
Because Horace wants to move. He wants to get a house, and his girlfriend Dixie, who's a singer in a club, she wants a house also, because they both have tiny apartments, but Horace is bound and determined that he's going to jump the color line in LA, and that he's going to go buy a house in a white section, which he's not supposed to do. And so that causes some trouble, and it's a big subject of the book, kind of Horace wanting his house, and will he get it, and what would it mean for him to jump the color line to do it, because African Americans in LA were really herded into kind of one tiny section of the city, and they were really not, allowed. And if they did jump the fence, they were immediately sort of herded back in, And there were very active members of the Klan in 1948, and one of the most active outposts of the Klan was in Culver City, which is where this factory is. So,
completely. And
so that's
that all relates to the past of the United States as usual, because there were some things that happened in Tulsa that are also related with the actual things that happen in your book. And I got with one of the things that one of the characters tells, that is something like, you can tell me the exact quote, as the white men treat us badly, the worse they treat us, the more we love them. It's like, isn't it like that, what your character says?
Yes, he says something like that, and there's another line too, actually, which is one of Horace's friends has a line which is sort of similar, and he talks about this color line also, and he says that. Well, first, there's a couple of lines. One is about Harry's talking about the police. He says the police were too busy with what they called real murders to investigate a murder Harry knows about of a black man. He says, I didn't say it, but couldn't help thinking that when a white man kills a Negro, it's an accident. But when a Negro kills a white man, even in self-defense, it's a crime punishable by the electric chair. And that's how the two worlds interact.
Yeah, I like it because you know, it's one thing I love a lot of Harry Palmer's mysteries of your novels is that you always have a lot of humor. That's and but humor that relates a lot with reality. That's a bittersweet humor, isn't it?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, there's another the line. The other line I was looking for was something Horace says to him. He's in the club. They're in this club in Central LA. You know, the Rhythm and Blues Club where Dixie's singing, and Horace talks about the danger of white and black getting together in an equal situation. That it might give everyone the idea that maybe they are equal. And he says, if it can happen here. If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere in the schools and on the factory floor. That's what they're so afeared of. Why some of those white people spend more of their time dreaming up more ways to humiliate the Negro than on any other single endeavor. You know?
Yeah.
And by the way, some of this stuff is I have to acknowledge Chester Himes is a big source for me. And Chester Himes has two great books, If He Hollers, Let Him Go, and The Lonely Crusade. And those books were really, really important in terms of creating the character of Horace in this book, actually. And Himes' first two books are really incredible. I mean, his crime novels are great too, you know, Coffin Ed and Gravedigger Jones, but the first two books are really, really stunning, especially The Lonely Crusade, which is really amazing, and nobody read it. He really got stifled. The book really got stifled because it talks honestly about black and Jewish relations, black and white relations, and it doesn't pull any punches, you know. So it did not do well in its time. But so that's another subject, and of course the major subject though of the book is this thing of the airline industry and how it may or may not be going bankrupt because it tries to make it on its own in 1948. And as Harry delves or has to delve more deeper into it to try to get Horace's money, he finds out that the finances are very funny and very tricky in terms of this industry, you know, and he also finds out that it's sort of that one of the ways of saving the industry is to start beating the drums of war. And the third part of the book is called 7 Days in March, and it's actually true. There were 7 days in which the Truman administration tried to scare the hell out of the American people in order to raise the defense budget. And so I have actually, while Harry's sort of pursuing the case, on the radio and in the paper, he keeps reading these things as they accelerate over this really intense week, and that's a part of the book as well.
Yes, completely, because as you show on the book, there is so much money involved in the arms industry, in the weapons, in all that. So many aircrafts they build, and they need to keep building weapons. So many planes that if you don't have a war, you have to like imagine it, like invent a cause for keep on working on weapons.
Yeah, I think there's a general who says to him, enemies come and go, but the weapons industry is forever.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way he phrases it, you know. And of course, people have drawn parallels between, and I certainly did while I was writing the book, between this period and our own period.
Completely.
Where the defense budget in the United States is just utterly out of hand. I mean, we have like millions of people who are about to lose their homes. And if 1% of the defense budget were allocated to giving those people homes, there would be no crisis. You know, it's really incredible.
1%.
Yeah, 1%.
It's incredible, completely.
Yeah,
completely.
You know, so that's going on. And the other thing too that I thought there were a lot of parallels between were the Bernie Sanders campaign for president and the Henry Wallace campaign.
Yes, you talked me about it the other time. It's very interesting because now Wallace is almost completely forgotten, but it was a very intense campaign, and he could have been president of the United States.
Well, yes, at one point, I think they were polling around 20% really early in the campaign.
20%,
and it was at
yes.
that point that Truman gives this speech at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and he says, Henry Wallace is a communist, and we will not have anything to do with the communists. And after that, of course, the Wallace campaign tanks. But it's not true. Henry Wallace was not a communist, but it was an effective way to tar the campaign, and after that they never quite recovered. Though they did go on to, you know, have a convention, the party called the Progressive Party, and there were many great planks in the platform, which, you know, would be good today. And you know, Bernie Sanders was really in that in the line of a Henry Wallace, you know, and Bernie Sanders was done in by the Democrats. Yeah. You know, exactly, you know, in a very dirty way, in that they ran all of these people against him whose only place in the campaign was to make sure he didn't get elected. And then just before what was called Super Tuesday, when it really counted, and Sanders had the momentum, most of them ducked out of the race and then threw their support to Biden, but the one who was going to take votes away from Bernie Sanders stayed in the campaign, and it was all coordinated. And you see that kind of thing. That's what Harry finds in terms of the Democrats and the Republicans about Wallace. They all hate him because he's for peace, and they don't want peace. So,
Okay. You know, I have a cousin in the USA who's a big fan of Bernie Sanders, so I think she's gonna love you completely. You know, I'm not so fond of Sanders as you, but anyway, we always have our different views, and we like to share them on Cannes Film Festival. And I think that Cannes Film Festival would like to have a film that would be an adaptation of Harry Palmer's mysteries, as there are two, there are going to be three. When is going to enjoy Cannes a film by, I don't know if by Dennis Broe, but a film with Harry Palmer?
Well, okay, so the first, I wanted to read a little quote from the first review, and it said, if and when the major motion picture is ever made, they'd hardly have to hire another scriptwriter. The smart, snappy arch dialogue is all here. So that's very nice, and all I can say is I'm in the process of trying to get it to someone who is very like-minded who thinks a lot like Harry Palmer.
Okay.
And who might be interested in doing something with it. So that's what I could say at the moment, you know.
We need it in the theaters, Harry Palmer's humor, Harry Palmer's clever mind, and when it's going, as you have already told, that it's going to be a third book, at least. I wait for 30 books of Harry Palmer's. When it's going to appear, the third one? Because the second one, we have it already on Amazon. We have all your books in. We have looked for Dennis Broe in Amazon, and there are lots of books. There is also makeup in Amazon. I don't know if it's makeup with your name. If you have a hidden brand of makeup, I don't know. But there are lots of books. But
not that I know of.
The third one. When will the third one appear?
That one hopefully will be out next year.
Next year. Okay.
Yes.
So it's one book a year, isn't it?
It's one book a year. And I do have plans for a second trilogy. Each book moves ahead 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next year, so this is 1948. The next book will be 1949. And then the next trilogy would be 50, 51, and 52. So the subject of those three books, 50 is real estate. And if you know anything about Los Angeles, you know that real estate is really the hot item in Los Angeles.
Completely.
And it's really how power is wielded in Los Angeles. And Harry gets involved with the wife of the mayor in this one. And then the fifth book is a return to the blacklist, only the blacklist is now in full force in what Dalton Trumbo called the time of the toad. That is, when everyone was a toady and was turning everyone else in. So it's much worse than the first book, Left of Eden. And the last book is about the porn industry.
Oh.
And it's about how the porn industry, because Hollywood all of a sudden became sanitized and couldn't put anything on the screen and talk about anything. The porn industry grew by leaps and bounds, and so it's about kind of the relationship between the two of them. So,
Okay.
But I did want to say one other thing about A Farewell to Arms and about the trilogy in general. People have complimented it about its knowledge of L.A., and one critic said, the city of Los Angeles and its greater environs are Harry Palmer's stomping grounds. And this critic is from Los Angeles. Especially for someone who lives here, reading about his escapades is an amusing time travel adventure, one that helps to explain why and how the area grew to what it has become. And this book, A Farewell to Arms, really does talk about how there's a plan for the Los Angeles economy and how that because the economy is kind of tanking after World War II, and how there's a plan to keep it going, but that plan, but also the dangers involved, And just to drop a little hint in the book, there's also Nazis involved, and the Vatican. So it gets to some strange places.
Yes, but they are places you know very well. There are your visions that they're always interesting. Although we don't agree sometimes. I don't know if we ever agree. Yes, we agree sometimes. And we need your point of view, your humor, and almost your, of course, not almost, of course, your vision of non-fiction. So, what is going to come earlier? A fiction by Dennis Broe of Harry Palmer, or a non-fiction book? What will be the next project?
The next book is going to be The Precinct with the Golden Arm. So, about the LAPD.
Okay.
So that's going to be the next book. And then after that, before I start the second trilogy, there's likely going to be a book about Marvel Studios.
No, don't tell me. Do you know that people must know that if your titles are interesting, your books are more interesting even. So please go on and read them, because you're gonna enjoy it a lot, of course.
Yes, the topic of that book is Marvel Studios and Commodified Seriality.
Oh my! You always find a place in reality that we all like. So, Dennis, thank you very much for being with us again, for writing brilliantly, as you always do, because there are lots of sentences I've underlined of your book that I would like were mine, but there are Harry Palmer's sentences or Dennis Broe sentences. I don't know where is the line between Harry Palmer and Dennis Broe.
I think they're Harry Palmer's. He's got a good sensibility, and the guy's very funny.
Okay, completely. Dennis, thank you, and see you next time. I don't know, in Cannes, Paris, United States, LA,
Yes,
whenever you want.
Or Venice, maybe, but or maybe Con next year. Yep. I'm going to Venice also, so maybe there.
Okay, see you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Antonio. Bye.